Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Monday, and all of our guests today brought to you by Basant Motors. It's spring cleaning time. That includes Jamie McLennan standing by.
Yeah.
It's spring cleaning time at Basant Motors, and they're clearing out the lot. Get the lowest interest rates from 4.99%, massive discount pricing, and much more. Check them out at Basant Motors, BASANT Motors.com. As we bring in Noodles from TSN, Jamie McLennan. Thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you guys doing today?
Very well. 6-1 Minnesota over Dallas on Saturday. Is this a one-off, or are the Wild that much better than the Stars?
I wouldn't say they're that much better. It's a one-off on the score. But when you look at it, I've said all along, Minnesota's going to be a handful. And I know Dallas is upset about that because, people are pissed off about the 2-3 situation. And you really have two cup contenders that one of them is going to go out in the first round, which really, is sad for that marketplace. But Minnesota, with the Quinn Hughes trade, they already have Kaprizov there. Boldy, I think Matt Boldy is a superstar. I don't think he gets enough love for how good he is. And if the goaltending can hold up, I wasn't sure they were going to start, and Wallstead was outstanding. So, Dallas has their hands full. They're going to bounce back. I think this is going to be a knock-em-out, drag-em-out series that goes 7 games. But the first game looked pretty good by Minnesota. And I will say this, credit to Glenn Gulletson. He left Ottinger in there right after the game. He just came out and said, listen, they got some lucky bounces, which they did. There was a shot that was going 3 feet wide that hit a body in front and went in the net. There's things like that you can't control. But good on Gulletson getting ahead of those questions. But I think this is going to be a real tough series for the Dallas Stars. I did, going into it, think that Minnesota had the edge just based on the superstar power on the back end. They've got 2 star number defensemen in Faber and Hughes, but Dallas is a handful too. They can score, so it'd be interesting to see how this unfolds.
Okay, and Rick will get to the connection Quinn Hughes in a second, but Juraj Slafkovsky, 3 goals, including the OT winner for the Habs, 4-3 over Tampa Bay, 30-goal season. He had that tremendous Olympics. Where's his game at? You mentioned Matthew Boldy, emerging superstar. What about Juraj Slafkovsky?
Absolutely. I think what happened early on is, when you're a first overall pick and you're a guy that, they expect to just hit the ground running. He's a massive body. And I think what's happened in the first couple of years, he realized his strength on the ice, what he can get away with because of his size, and he's got good hands. He's got tremendous chemistry, obviously, with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. But this is a guy who has the opportunity to be one of those unicorns in the league, a guy who can score, but hit and do all of the other stuff. I don't think he's a fighter, so I wouldn't put him in the Tom Wilson / Brady Tkachuk bucket. But he's like those players. He's that strong. He can separate himself with that type of strength, and he's a great skater. So we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. I do believe he can be a 40-goal scorer in the league, and he can be a physical force. And why not? I mean, he's just a young kid that's still learning how good he can be at the NHL level. But last night was a pretty good example of everybody else gets a lot of attention, and it leaves him wide open, and he does the damage.
Jamie, I didn't think the Buffalo was going to solve Swayman. They finally got to him in the third. The building goes nuts. How cool was that to see?
Unreal. I mean, it's the best story in hockey this year. And with respect to Montreal, with respect to Pittsburgh, some of the teams and organizations, even Colorado, that have had great seasons. Buffalo was dead on the tarmac. And everyone was talking, 14 straight years, they missed the playoffs. They were talking about firing Lindy Ruff. They do fire Kevin Adams. And all of a sudden, a breath of fresh air comes in, and this team galvanizes. They're not, I wouldn't say they're a Cinderella team because we saw how good they were the second half of the season. Now Tage Thompson, I watched his interview afterwards on ESPN, and he said, it took us a little bit, but we knew if we could beat Swayman once, we could get a couple more. And that's exactly what they did. So good on them. Good on the city. It was awesome to see how excited they are. I mean, that was unbelievable. I was laughing because I watched a sound off, or a sound up, no broadcasters on that goal that you're showing right now. It gave me goosebumps.
Yep.
The building, the roof almost popped off. And with 3:24 left, that's the dagger. Man, oh man, it was just bedlam in Buffalo. That was awesome.
Hey, Jamie, don't give the bosses any ideas. No broadcasters. Don't endorse that, okay?
Oh, no. We need broadcasters. I think I saw it on X somewhere where somebody, took out the broadcasters, just had the live feed of the actual goal from behind. It was unbelievable. But you definitely need the broadcasters because they help bring the crowd and the fans into it.
Yes, always say that. 96 hits in Game 1, Carolina-Ottawa. 96. And then you see Tkachuk fight off the opening faceoff. Travis Green was asked about that, and he said, I loved it. I absolutely loved my star player fighting off the draw.
Yeah, I mean, it took a calendar year for Brady to fight because of his finger injury at the start of the season. But the minute he did, he dropped the gloves with Anders Lee, right off the faceoff, sets the tone. Now, I will say this. I also think it gave Carolina some juice because Jordan Stahl's not a guy that drops the gloves quite often. So to see him do well, him in his own building do well, it gave Carolina some juice as well. It took a little bit for Ottawa to settle into their game. And to be honest, I think the difference in the game is that Carolina got to their game quicker than Ottawa did. Ottawa pushed at the end. Freddie Anderson made some great saves. But at the end of the day, the margin for error between those two organizations is going to be a save here, a lucky bounce there, that type of stuff. There's going to be one critical play per game that will be the difference in a positive way or a negative way. And I joked in our preview show that those teams couldn't be closer together. There's that Spider-Man meme where they're just pointing at each other going, you're the same guy, the same guy. Mm-hmm. The way they play, the way that they check, how hard they play, how hard they contest every piece of ice, the difference was going to be either a save, a big play, or maybe an unlucky bounce. And we kind of saw a little bit of all of that in that Game 1.
Okay, Canucks, I'm sure you're aware of what Jim Rutherford had to say on Friday. With Quinn Hughes and Matthew Tkachuk in mind, should Canadian NHL teams be wary of committing to American stars?
I mean, yes and no. I will say probably the light is on it more than ever recently. And I'm not political, but with the countries that are, things are where they are. You look at the U.S. winning the gold. You look at the reception that some of the U.S. players who play in Canadian teams had coming home. All of the types of things, you throw it all into a bucket. I think managers have to be, I don't think they go out of their way to not look at American players or not try and sign them long term. I think you just have to be mindful of the player coming in. And I've said this all along, whether it's Vancouver, whether it's Calgary, whether it's Toronto, Ottawa, you name it. You have to build a program that anybody wants to be a part of, everybody, the league, no matter what nationality you are, where you're from. And that solves a lot of issues. And if your program is a mess, then people start to look at it and go, okay, what else do we have to pick apart here? The tax situation, the weather, you name it, all of the other things that we just talked about, potentially that could come. I always look at everything like a pizza. So there's 8 or 10 pieces or 12 pieces in a pizza. There's certain things that factor into it. Tax situation, weather, building, culture, all of the stuff. Keep in mind, when I needed a contract, I went where I wanted to, but I knew what the type of player I was. I'm talking about the higher end players, the star players. There's always a different factor that they have to think into it. But you know what? You do have to be mindful. I'm not there yet, Donnie, as far as just, hey, you got to stick with player X, Y, and Z because, if you have an American, you're going to have to trade them because they're going to want to go home. I'm not there yet. But I do think you have to be mindful of everybody's individual case.
And very, very quickly, Jamie, is Mike Gillis the guy in Toronto?
I've heard his name. I've heard John Chaika. I've heard Mark Hunter. Suni Mehta's name, who was floated, obviously. And then he hooks on in Vegas, or not in Vegas, in Jersey.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. As much as I, like to nibble around behind the scenes, I've talked to a lot of managers, a lot of general managers. It seems like there's been a lot of people that have gone through and talked with Keith Pelly. I don't know what that means. I don't know if he's made a decision. It sounds like it's sooner than later. But I will say this. If it's one person or two, they got to get it right. As you know, if you get the wrong person in there and they start to make mistakes, especially when it's a critical time for the organization, it could set them back several years. So you have to get the right person or people to help that organization get back on track. Because to be honest, they're asking Austin Matthews not unfairly, but on the last day of locker cleanout, like, what's your intention? He's like, I don't even know who's running the team. So it's fair for him to say, I just want to get healthy and see what this looks like. So I think that's where we're at right now in Toronto.
How would we know that? Things are perfect in Vancouver, Jamie. Thanks for this, buddy.
The Spider-Man thing again. There you go.
Let's go with that. Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.